President Biden signing an executive order just moments ago on gun control. The move increases background checks to purchase guns while promoting better and more secure firearm storage.
President Biden unveiled the plans in Monterey Park, the location of a mass shooting in January that killed 11 people during a Lunar New Year celebration. The president doubling down on his push for changes in the gun industry ahead of that likely re-election run.
Joining us right now to discuss a number of things, Arizona Congresswoman Debbie Lesko. Congresswoman, first, I don't know if you have thoughts on the gun control. I know your state is fond of the Second Amendment, and I was kind of curious the way you read this.
Well, we'll have to get the details of what exactly his executive order does and if it violates the Constitution. I mean, the Democrats and President Biden keep on this mantra of defunding the police type policies, which is increasing the crime, but then they want to take away guns from law-abiding citizens to defend themselves. So my guess is that if it is unconstitutional, there'll be a bunch of lawsuits blocking the enactment of his executive order. We'll just have to see the details.
And Congresswoman, I want to switch gears a little bit about something that you are involved in. On the first day of March, you introduced an amendment to the United States Constitution to guarantee the fundamental right of parents to make the best educational decisions for their children and to ensure that that is constitutionally protected. Now, in your press release, you stated that the Biden administration's Department of Justice has worked to target parents and prevent them from having a say in what their children are being taught in the classroom. Tell us a little bit about what this effort entails and how likely you think it is that will actually happen.
Well, it's a very common sense piece of legislation that protects parents' rights, basically a Bill of Rights for parents, because the Biden administration and Democrats are going after parents if the parents disagree with their leftist agenda. So it's something that I believe is necessary. It's sad that it's necessary, but it makes sure that parents have jurisdiction over their children and what their children do and what schools their children go to and what they're being taught. And it's a sad day of affairs when we have to do this type of thing, but we do. Now, the chances of getting this past the finish line are difficult because it's a constitutional amendment. And even though it's common sense, I imagine that my Democratic colleagues are not going to support it. And of course, President, Biden is not going to be supportive of it in my estimation. So it's a heavy lift, but I think it's important to set some stakes in the grounds that Republicans care about parental rights and that parents are the best people to decide what schools their children goes to and what education they get.
And also wanted to ask you about the Silicon Valley Bank failure. We also had the Signature Bank failure, which notably had on its board of directors Barney Frank, whose name is on the Dodd-Frank legislation that was to regulate banks. Your thoughts on what's going on right now?
Well, we had a briefing on this. The GOP U.S. House of Representative members had a briefing on this last night. And basically, there's a few things that contributed to the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. And that was, one, the San Francisco bank regulator failed. They failed to see this coming, and Silicon Valley Bank had a concentrated group of depositors, and most of those deposits were over the $250,000 insured, FDIC-insured rate. And so there was a big concentration of high depositors, high-value dollar depositors, but also their investments were in long-term mortgages and in long-term treasury bonds. And so when they had to go to sell these assets to get capital, they were losing money. And then, of course, the social media, the different fund managers said, okay, they recommended to their clients that they take out the money, and so then there was a run on the bank.
Right.
And so now over the weekend, the FDIC and the U.S. Treasury decided to make the depositors whole because they were afraid that other banks would have runs on their banks as well.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Congressman Debbie Lesko, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.